Hello. So it's in. Interesting, isn't it, that I do a video yesterday saying I haven't heard from the Ombudsman, and then funnily enough, I hear from them. Now, it's very lengthy, so get yourself a cup of tea, buckle up. What this does mean is I can explain all the bits I probably couldn't explain to you before. And what it does mean is that I can give information that perhaps you may not have had, which hopefully will answer some things for you. But the first interesting thing to note with this is the response I got in response to their delay. So they said, "We appreciate your patience. We've been reviewing your case. This delay was caused by a cyber attack at JLR, as has been reported in the press. In light of this, we took extra steps to ensure no unnecessary risk or burden were introduced into our process." It goes on. Now, my issue with that is you and I will remember that this appeal went in April 2024. Now, the JLR cyber attack did not happen in April 2024, did it? So when I read that at the top of the letter, I knew things were not looking good. If the Motoring Ombudsman were using a cyber attack on JLR, the only link to that being Jaguar Land Rover and my case, as in it was about a Land Rover, then we were sort of clutching at straws a little bit. Please like, subscribe and share. On this one, do you know what? Please do share. So in response to so many comments about you need to go and drive your car outside Marshalls, Peterborough with a big "this is what they did to me," you need to go to the press, you need to do all of this. Well, I couldn't do any of that because the case was active with the Ombudsman. I can now. So I will be going to the press. I've already filed my appeal, and I'll explain why I've filed my appeal. And I can now do all of those things because it's a bit Mr. Bates in the post office. This is the clearest example, I think, of a big corporation, big corporations and their network supporting each other and the consumer, the individual, being completely walked over. I must say that when I read this last night, I felt sick. My heart plummeted. I panicked. I had a bit of a panic attack. I couldn't regulate, I couldn't process it. It took me a long time. I've come back today fighting. I've come back today with an absolute I'm not having this. And I'm going to share with you my response to the Ombudsman, and I'm going to share with you what they've said because I can now. What I must make clear is that they have partially upheld my case. So the partial part that they have upheld is the fact that Marshalls did not respond or engage in the process. And they have cited certain clauses saying that that was unacceptable. And that part has been upheld. So Marshalls, if you're looking for a guilty, not guilty verdict, they have been found guilty of not following the process and not doing their part of the process. Now, in upholding that, you would expect some of that weight then falls onto the decision of the actual car, but it does not. So herein lies our problem. So I'm going to share with you my response, which bullets some of what they've said, and I've taken out the bits that I think are most pertinent. So the Ombudsman say, issues may develop during or following a service, but this would not immediately imply that the business is liable unless they had used unreasonable care and skill. My response. The key fact here is that when my car entered Marshalls on the 9th of January, it had no electrical faults. We know this because there were no warning lights, no performance inhibitors and no issues. We also know this as Marshalls themselves confirmed that they performed a full diagnostic on entry. No fault was present. So the Ombudsman is saying it's up to me to prove that the wiring loom issue occurred after it went into Marshalls. They're saying you cannot just say that it had a wiring loom issue and that was Marshall's fault. My argument was always, how could it not be Marshall's fault? It didn't have it when it went in, and they took the door off both in the incident and to repair it, which compromised the wiring loom. And even more importantly, the general manager in a meeting with me said It has developed an electrical fault. We need to order a wiring loom, but it will take up to, I think, 6 months to get it. And so we will provide you with an alternative vehicle. That was said in an in-person meeting. I was then subsequently told, driving home from that meeting, that my car was ready for collection. And I said, how can it be? I've just had a meeting which backs up the whole reasons I've rejected it, that it's developed a wiring loom issue, and you're now saying it hasn't got one and I can come and pick it up. And there started the denials. So it has been denied that the general manager said that. However, we have got audio evidence of that in the phone call. We have email evidence that in my relaying the story to Jaguar Land Rover customer care and to the general manager and to the Ombudsman. And because I issued an SAR, subject access request, pertaining to all of this, Marshalls didn't respond. They sent a few emails, but they didn't respond with any of the phone calls, and they didn't respond with any of the meaningful information. They responded with invoices, but they didn't respond with any of the emails pertaining to my car. So they withheld that information. They didn't give it to the process. In that information is the proof that the general manager said it had a wiring loom issue. But they've gone back on that. Now, the legal team said it's up to you to prove that this happened. And I'm like, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know how else I can prove this to you. What do you want me to do? Send my car in with catastrophic steering failure, but say before they put it on a ramp, hang on a minute, can we just do a full diagnostic to see what happened before it had this? Do you do that? Do you do one every day before you go in your car? Do you do a diagnostic test to prove what it hasn't got in case it should need some form of care or attention? No, you don't. But that's what's being asked of me. Thank you, sausage. I am being asked to prove that this wiring loom wasn't an issue before it went in on January the 9th, 2024. And I have said, when it went into Marshalls, they said they did a full diagnostics. They said they checked everything and it didn't show up. So if it didn't show up, how was it there? And if it didn't show up, did they either not do it correctly? It wasn't there. What's the other alternative? So I took massive exception to that, and I based the case on that. I based the case on the fact that you're telling me that there's nothing wrong with my car. I'm telling you from seeing it when I was asked to come and collect it, that it was dirty, that it had all manner of stuff in the footwell, that it still had packets and bolts and what have you in it, that you couldn't see the paint match because it was so dusty. And when I drove it, it drove like a tractor. Why is that evidence being discounted as that's not evidence, that's not proof? What is the proof? What do we have to do? Now, many of you said about getting an independent inspection at the time. And the reason that we didn't go ahead with an independent inspection at the time to prove all of this was because every step of the way it was, we'll do more investigations, or we're looking at this, or we're not getting back to you. There was absolutely no window of opportunity to do that. Now, subsequently, when the new general manager joined in the summer of this year, they did an independent inspection. Nobody told me. Nobody shared that information with me. They did a Scotia report of an independent inspection. And they've given that to me. Sorry, sausage, but I need to look at my phone and you'll fall off. They've given that report to me, and I take issue with that report because it still didn't use any lasers to check whether the car was structurally damaged. It used visuals. It didn't use anything to say this car has got a problem with its chassis, despite the fact that we know it had a frame, a pillar damage. So I respond to that. I respond to the diagnostics and I say, either way, responsibility lies with Marshalls. What further proof is required from me? Am I seriously being asked to commission my own full diagnostic before handing my vehicle to a FCA approved service centre just to prove what condition it was in beforehand? This is an unreasonable and unrealistic expectation of any consumer. Next up, the Ombudsman say there is no evidence Marshall caused the electrical fault or failed to act with reasonable care and skill. My response, there is evidence. The above points prove it was not evident when it entered Marshalls via their very own diagnostics. So if we can't rely on that, what can we rely on? If we can't rely on Landrover or Marshalls diagnostics, where's our line in the sand? I then go on to say that the GM said to me it had developed an electrical fault. This is an admission of the fault developed whilst in their care. So why would the general manager say that if it wasn't real? Why would the general manager say it had got a fault if it didn't have a fault? Pick a lane. The Ombudsman then say, Marshalls cannot be expected to prove a negative. My response, yet I'm expected to prove a positive, to prove the car was fault-free when it entered their care. Well, it can't have been fault-free. That's the whole reason it entered their care, because it had a fault. But I did provide photographs of when I rejected it. I reported the poor condition immediately on collection, and I had no electrical issues prior to January the 9th, and Marshall's own diagnostics confirm that. How can I prove it any more than that? The Ombudsman say, oh, and then I go on to say, if my evidence is not accepted, then what exactly is? Why is Marshall's word held in a higher standard than mine? I then go on to, or they say, you have not evidenced how using your extended warranty disadvantaged you. So my response to that is, and if you remember, I used my warranty to get the steering rack. Well, I didn't use my warranty. They claimed against my warranty to get the steering rack fixed, which is what it went in for in the first place. And my argument had always been, this is a known recall. There are other cars who have been recalled and had this fix done at Jaguar Land Rover's expense. Yet you are now claiming on my warranty to fix it just because it's not under the recall. Now, as you know, a recall goes through chassis number, VIN number. So when it's your turn, your car gets recalled. That could be in 2 years, it could be in 5 years. They know there's an issue, but it's just the time it takes them to get to your car. Now, we all know with insurance that the more they're claimed against, the more premiums go up. So by Jaguar Land Rover claiming on my warranty, effectively all of our premiums are going up. It's a point of housekeeping. It's a point of principle. I recognise that my car was fixed under warranty. I recognise that that's why you buy warranties. My argument was this was a known recall. So we've got two different ways of dealing with it. We will either deal with it as the manufacturer accepting responsibility and fixing it, or we will deal with it with the consumer having to fix it because their car hasn't been recalled yet, although it will be. It's not fair, is it? Is the basics. So I say I was forced to claim this is a disadvantage. The Ombudsman say Marshalls has already provided the remedy we would otherwise award, which is that they fix the car. So my argument is they didn't fix the car. What Marshalls did was fix the bits that they thought were wrong with it and did not address the bits that I reported were wrong with it. So I go on to say, it is in dispute that Marshalls have repaired the issues as above. I was offered an under market value buyback. I had no choice but to buy a replacement car. I've lost money keeping that replacement roadworthy. I've had no use of my original car for nearly 2 years. I've lost the value through double depreciation. Marshalls has not remedied anything. I am left thousands of pounds out of pocket. The Ombudsman go on to say the delay in this case was due to the JLR cyber attack. Well, we've already sort of been through that. They then go on to say, in reference to the independent assessment, Scotia's inspection confirms the vehicle is sound and roadworthy. My response, the Scotia report is incomplete and flawed. It confirms the car was not placed on a laser alignment jig, meaning the structural integrity was never truly verified. The inspection relied heavily on visual checks and paint depth recordings, which cannot confirm if the chassis or A-pillar geometry remains to the manufacturer's tolerance. The report admits that the offside door was removed and refitted with weather strip distortion still present. That indicates intrusion into wiring and alignment areas, which are directly relevant to my complaint. It flags stored SRS, airbag fault, codes, yet dismisses them as historic without proof. Airbag faults cannot simply be waved away. They are a critical safety system. The report also acknowledges poor paint match, refinishing across multiple panels, and distortion on door fittings. This is not a reasonable standard for a premium vehicle. Crucially, the question at the heart of this dispute is whether the vehicle is structurally sound, and that has never, ever been answered. So the effect on the findings is that Marshalls can admit my car developed faults whilst in their care, yet walk away unaccountable. They can refuse to comply with my subject access request, withholding transparency without consequence. I'm expected to prove the impossible, to evidence the absence of faults on a vehicle before handing it to an authorised service centre. I'm left thousands of pounds out of pockets, 2 years of my life lost chasing accountability while Marshall and JLR move on unscathed. So that's the crux of it. That's the bare bones. So I've obviously, as you can see, pulled it apart. I go into further detail, but we haven't got all day. Happy to answer any individual questions on this. But hopefully that answers a few questions from you, and also about the fact that I haven't been able to do anything. Now I can. So in this, I've said they buy back both cars and they refund me for the expenditure on the car that I had to buy to replace it. There's no compensation in that whatsoever. It is simply replacing capital outlay by myself. And I can draw a line on it. I can get my Toyota Hilux, hopefully, and we can move forwards. If you'd have asked me 2 years ago, I did want compensation. I still think I deserve compensation. I still think there is a bigger case to be answered. I still think this is a legal case waiting to happen. And I'm not suggesting I won't go to small claims or to court. I'm not suggesting that. I would need to work out how I do it. We've talked about crowdfunding. If it is a legal case, I will crowdfund, because this isn't just for me. This is for everyone that gets sent in this perpetual circle of what big companies and big corporations won't do. It's not what they will do. There is no accepting of moral responsibility, ethical framework that we work within. None of that. It is simply a case of legally we're not obliged to, and you need to prove that we should. So as the consumer, as the individual, we start on the back foot, and then it's like whack-a-mole. They just push us further and further and further down, and I'm not prepared to accept it. I am at the position now where I suspect Land Rover will just dump the car back on me, and I should imagine my appeal won't go through. Hello, dogs! Are you joining in? It's probably the right time to end. The dogs are furious with what's happening, and rightly so. But I'll leave you with that. We'll see where we get to with it. It is an appeal, and I hope that only takes 10 days, but, you know, as with everything else, it's taken much longer.